Good friend of us here on the DA show, good friend of ours, Antonio Daniels. Drop it on by. AD, how we doing?
I'm good, DA. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing good as well, man. Thanks so much. And we'll start with the Western Conference Finals. We've had 3 blowouts in a row. If you put your finger on why this series is swinging so dramatically one way or the other, and we have not had a competitive game in any of the 3 games, what would that be?
Firepower, I guess, is the easiest way to put it. You're probably talking about the best 2 teams in the league, first and foremost, but you're also talking about the 2 teams in the league that have the most firepower and ability to score. I just don't think – I think moving forward, I had this being a gentleman's sweep from the beginning. I had Houston losing game 1 and winning game 2, and not winning another game since for the remainder of this series. Golden State's just too much. They are. They have too much firepower. They have too much star power. They check all the boxes. The chemistry, the selflessness, the ability to sacrifice, the fact that no one cares who gets the credit. Guys just play their role. They check all the boxes. That's why there's so much and head and shoulders ahead of everyone else in this league.
We discussed whether it's true that Golden State is good for the NBA. People will say, well, that excellence raises the bar for everybody. But there's a whole lot of fans around the country that have no shot at an NBA championship, and maybe Houston included, because the Rockets are just not nearly as good as the Warriors. Do you think Golden State's supremacy is good for the league?
Me personally?
Yeah.
I do.
You do?
I do, because what it does is it brings a different competitive nature. So if you remember in the beginning of the year, one of the things Daryl Morey talked about is he has become obsessed with beating Golden State, and I think that's fantastic. Because now what you're doing is you're seeing a different sort of competitiveness and mentality that wasn't there before. You know what I mean? I get there are 2 sides to the story. I get the side of, you know what, everybody knew this is how it was going to be in the beginning. Golden State will play itself out, and at the end, Golden State will be holding the trophy up. I get that whole thing. But now if you are other guys, other big-time free agents, what it's going to force you to do is realize you can't do this by yourself anymore. You know, if you're Paul George or you're Russell Westbrook or even guys like Chris Paul, you know, you're going to look to join with someone else. You know, maybe Paul George goes to Philadelphia and realizes, you know what, me, Joel Embiid, and Ben Simmons and some of these other guys, maybe we can give a push to someone like Golden State. So now you get guys that are in control of their own destiny. And that I get both sides of it, but for me, I love the fact that you have 29 other teams in this league building teams and chasing the Golden State Warriors.
So I see that point. My only concern is what happens if it's not possible? What happens if Steph Curry and Kevin Durant being on the same team, it's just not possible to be better than them no matter how much talent you collect?
It will be possible eventually, because eventually what will happen is the salary cap will kick in. You know, so at the end of next year, Klay Thompson becomes a free agent. So now if you are an organization or a team or even a free agent yourself and you're looking forward, now you start to realize what could come of this Golden State Warriors team. In 2019, when Klay Thompson becomes a free agent, you're telling yourself, if he leaves, this is not the same team. Any way you look at it, any way you break it down. Yes, they are still talented. Yes, they still have firepower and chemistry, but losing someone like Klay Thompson changes the game. It changes the game for all other 29 teams that are playing. And if you are a Jimmy Butler who's a free agent that year, or some of the other guys that are free agents that year, now you're telling yourself it's a lot easier to compete with Golden State with Klay Thompson, with Steph Curry and Kevin Durant and Draymond Green without Klay Thompson as opposed to being with him.
Antonio Daniels joins us here on the show. So it's almost a waiting game until next summer, huh?
It has to be. It has to be. They have too much. It is what it is. You know, you look at last night, Klay Thompson had 13 points, and they still won by 30.
41.
Green had 10 points.
They won by 41.
Right. You know, that's so much. You know, you look at these first few games that they've won. Game 1, Steph Curry didn't play well. They still win running away. You know, game 2, I kind of expected them to lose because when you're a road team in game 1 and you win game 1 on the road, you can become very complacent in game 2 because you got what you went for. You went for a split, you got it. So you see that team, that road team, kind of let his guard down in game 2. But now you see in Game 3, when it was 1-1, what this team is capable of. And they did not even play that well yesterday. Klay Thompson didn't play that well. Draymond Green, 10 points, 14 rebounds. He had a Draymond Green-type game, but they just have too much to compete with.
Now, because the Rockets went quietly into the night last night and lost by 41 points, are you concerned about the Rockets' guts or their fight or their compete level for the rest of this series?
I don't really worry about their mentality moving forward. I just worry about if they have enough. That's all. If you look at Game 2, it took some pretty big efforts from guys they're not used to getting those efforts from. And Houston Rockets' style of play will beat 28 other teams in this league. It really will. The one team that it probably won't beat is the Golden State Warriors. This is why I'm in favor of the NBA going from 1 to 16. Because this right here, what you're looking at is the best two teams in the league, and I would love to see them play in the finals as opposed to the Western Conference Finals.
That's interesting. Antonio Daniels joins us here on the show. On the Eastern side of things, the Cavaliers get a win in Game 3, primarily because the supporting cast of LeBron was able to pick up more of the slack, and LeBron didn't have to have an immortal-type game. Is that a reason to believe that the Cavaliers can not only extend this series but compete in this series until a Game 7?
Well, I think they could compete until a Game 7, but you said it. What it really comes down to is those other guys. And you look at the Series 1 against Indiana, the difference between Indiana and Toronto was the other guys. Because LeBron basically willed the Cleveland Cavaliers to victory 4 times against Indiana. And against Toronto, all the other guys showed up. J.R. Smith, George Hill, Kevin Love, Kyle Korver, those guys showed up against Toronto. That's why they swept Toronto. But now LeBron is not enough to will this team to 4 victories against Boston. They're too deep, they're too long, they're too athletic, and they're coached too well. So now if you're LeBron James and you're in the Eastern Conference Finals, now you realize, not like Series 1 against Indiana, you need these other guys. You need J.R. Smith to hit shots. You need Kyle Korver to hit shots. You need Kevin Love to be aggressive. You need George Hill to be aggressive. You need these other guys to beat a team like the Boston Celtics. So really what it comes down for me, if these other guys show up, I still will stand by what I said from day one, and that's the fact that I think the Cleveland Cavaliers are coming out of the East.
You still believe that, down 2-1 right now?
I do. I don't want to go back and change what I said right now, but ultimately it's going to come down to these other guys. It's going to come down to the contributions and impact that the role players have. Because stars have to be stars this time of the year. LeBron James has to be LeBron James, which he was in Game 2 with a 42-point triple-double. I get it. But that's not going to be enough to beat this Boston Celtics team. LeBron has to be LeBron, but everybody has a role on that team, and they have to play the role to the best of their ability to beat a team as deep as the Boston Celtics.
Finally, do you think there's any part of Kyrie Irving that is uncomfortable with this team being so good and successful without him?
I think this is going to sound crazy to say.
Okay.
I think every player that's in that position would have some sort of, but you're happy.
I agree.
And you're joyful for what this team is doing. But on the flip side, you're like, man,
yeah.
Well, I don't like. You look at like DeMarcus Cousins. DeMarcus Cousins, the moment that he went down in New Orleans and this team they go on an 11-game winning streak, a 10-game winning streak, and then end up sweeping Portland in the first round, now you start to hear whispers. Okay, is this team better without DeMarcus Cousins? Or is Terry Rozier, should he be the starting point guard of this team? Now you use Kyrie Irving as a trading pawn. So, yes, you're joyful as to what this team has accomplished, but the fact that you're not a part of it, it weighs on every athlete's ego, especially a superstar like Kyrie Irving.
Totally. I mean, for you and I, if our ratings were good, but ratings then spiked after they removed us off of the air, we'd immediately be like,
it makes you think.
Yeah, and you'd be like, well, I'm happy for the station, but, this is a little awkward for me.
Yeah, it would be awkward for anybody. When you see a situation where the organization, a team, like you said, the radio station begins to flourish, the moment that you're pulled off the air or the moment that you're moved to the bench or that you're injured, like that's a little crush to your ego. because now whispers start to happen from everyone else. Narratives start to become created. You know, Terry Rozier is a free agent after next year. Now you're Danny Ainge. What do you do? Do you move Kyrie Irving and start Terry Rozier? You know, if you're at this station, all right, maybe the station's better without DA. Maybe we should move somebody else in there. So for your own mental ego that you have, you wanted to be the best, and you want to see a team flourish while you're a part of it.
No doubt. I totally agree with you. Antonio Daniels joining us here on the show. He won a championship with the Spurs in 1999. He had a 13-year career. He's a studio analyst for the Oklahoma City Thunder. You can watch him for the Oklahoma City Thunder broadcast as well, OKC and Fox Sports Oklahoma. And you can follow him on Twitter at @ADaniels33. Antonio, my man, it is always great to catch up. I always enjoy our conversations. Hopefully we can do it again soon, bud.
For sure. Anytime you need me, brother.
Okay. Antonio Daniels joining us this morning here on the show.